contemporary fiction author, Kristina Carmela. Welcome, Kristina.
Hello. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to chat and hang.
Oh my gosh, we're going to have a great hour. I swear, I have so many questions for you. I was kind of doing a deep dive and trolling your profile, so
I'm ready.
You'll know, because you'll be like, girl, she went deep.
Okay.
Okay, so first of all, tell everybody your name, your handle, where you hang out the most.
Absolutely. My name is Kristina Carmela. My handle here and on TikTok and I think on Threads is all Kristina Carmela _writes. And I probably end up spending the most time here on Instagram, but I'm kind of everywhere else too.
Like the best platform.
Right? Exactly. And I'm not just saying that.
Okay, so let's kind of unpack your author title first. And then I want to deep dive into that beach town that you created. I freaking love it.
It's my favorite place ever.
Okay, I feel like it's going to be my favorite place ever, and everybody who's watching, their favorite place ever. So, okay. So tell us what a contemporary fiction author is, and then we'll visit Nelsonville.
Awesome. So, the way I interpret contemporary fiction, at least, is kind of something that encompasses a little bit of everything. So I struggled when you asked me that question. I was like, oh my God, I don't know. My books have romance, but I wouldn't consider them to be romance books. But there's a lot of like real life drama, and there's twists, but it's not necessarily a mystery. It's kind of a little bit of everything. It starts in 2021. COVID does not exist in my fictional world, though. So
good.
That doesn't exist.
In our real world, we have all
exactly. So, to me, it just kind of means stories that take place now that are super relatable, because real life has all of these different concepts and aspects and a little bit of everything. And that's kind of what my books are. So.
Okay, so let's deep dive into Nelsonville.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us the backstory, like just set the scene. I love that you created this world. I love that you're coming out with the novellas, that you're doing which I can't even believe you're doing a novella that encompasses like a year. Oh, okay. Anyway. Go.
So Nelsonville is based on my favorite place in the whole wide world. It's a place that I'll never confirm or deny, but it's a real place. And it's always been that place that I've loved to visit. We grew up going there as a family since I was a kid, and we actually just went back for the first time this summer, and I haven't been in years, since pre-COVID, and it was like so emotional for me. So Nelsonville is this beach town. Mm-hmm. It's in Rhode Island, and it's cozy, and it's just a sweet small town. And we spend a lot of time on Main Street. So it's a lot of small businesses, and that's kind of where all the friends meet and hang out a lot. Like, they all work in all these different shops on the Main Street. Some of them own them. Some of them took over because their families have been running them for decades and decades. So it's this really like small knit beach town. And so every book, because it's a series, we get to hang out at all these different Main Street shops, and we get to know all these different characters, and all the characters intertwine. So it's just this really homey town, and it kind of pulls people in who need a fresh start. So that's kind of the basis for all of our characters too. They all need this fresh start, and they all kind of just accidentally end up in this little town that needs them too.
Okay, I feel like that's quintessential small town America.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I travel, or when I go with my children, we're on we're in travel baseball, and it's always in these small towns.
Mm-hmm.
And they always have these so quaint main streets. And we always call it, if you've watched, I think it's the Pixar films, but Cars.
Yes.
The whole Cars franchise is set, in this small town, and, obviously when Route, 66. And so I feel, though, that so many people, either if you've grown up in that small town with a main street, you've watched movies, The Notebook had a main street.
Right, yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so there's so many, and I feel like that draws in a very large audience for you because so many people can relate either on vacation or in real life.
Right. Well, I always feel like they're the kind of towns that when you do visit in real life, like you could picture yourself living there and being a part of it. So that was what I wanted too, right? You want that setting that everyone wants to be a part of.
It's every Hallmark movie, you know, like big city girl comes home to like small town boy.
Yes, I know a lot of people have told me that's the vibe they get, which is hilarious because I am not a Hallmark movie girl. Like, and that's probably so wildly outlandish. Like my mother and my sister are obsessed, and I'm just like, I can't get a part of it. But a lot of people tell me it's got those vibes. Yeah.
Well, I love that though, because Hallmark, you know, yeah, if you're not a fan though, but oh my gosh, it's a cult following.
Yeah.
And we all know, so it's the same beat sheet that they follow for every movie, right? It's, you know exactly what to expect, when to expect it, how it will end.
Right.
But yet they churn these suckers out.
Like crazy.
Yeah, money hand over fist. So it makes sense. You want to create your own Nelsonville.
Yes, exactly.
So
that's my goal.
Okay. Yeah. So lay out for us how many books in the series, and then talk about those novellas that you're kind of like, you know, sliding in between the books.
I am very ambitious, and when I get an idea, I commit and I really run with it. So initially it was only supposed to be a standalone book this time around. That's the first book. And when I was writing it, I was like, no, it's definitely going to have a sequel. So I always knew there was going to be 2. And then when I was writing the second book, So It Goes, I was like, I'm writing a series. This is a whole series. So it's going to be 15 books total. So 15 novels.
What?
Yeah, I'm crazy, and I know this.
Ambitious.
And, yeah. So it'll be 15 novels total. However, it'll have 5 main female characters, and each female main character will have 3 books where they're the main lead character. So it'll essentially be, 5 sets of trilogies. Yeah, that's 15. Yeah. So they'll each have their own trilogy.
We're authors, not mathematicians.
Right? Yeah, math not my strongest. So they'll each have their own trilogies, and what's kind of cool about this is it'll take place over the course of 5 years. There are 5 best friends, and all the stories will weave in with each other. So storylines might not get finished in one book, and they'll get picked up in another book, or they might get revisited. But all the main themes that each of these women kind of deal with will be their big themes for their little trilogies as well. So those are the novels. And then because we spend so much time with a lot of the same side characters or reoccurring characters, I was like, these characters have such good stories, because as authors, we see it all. It's all in our brains that we just like keep kind of hidden. And I was like, what if I wrote novellas for these characters? Because I felt like their voices needed to be heard. So the first novella is on pre-order right now. It's called 1968. And the theme of all the novellas, it'll be from the perspective of one of these reoccurring main characters or side characters, but they're really main characters. And it'll be over the course of 1 year of their life, this like one big transformative year. So the first one takes place in 1968. And it's from Graham, who is one of our main characters' grandmother's point of view. And she's from Nelsonville, and she's in all the books. And like Graham is like that treasured grandmother kind of person, right?
Everyone's grandma.
She's everybody's grandmother. Yep. And she's the grandmother I wish I had. Kind of
I know, not the one I have, but the one I get to pick.
Exactly. So, it follows her and this like big transformative year. And there's these callbacks, some of her stories. So there are all these callbacks to what you already know about her. And it kind of explains some of these little family traditions that she had that's in the, in the series already. So it's just this really sweet way to get to know these other characters. And I think that I'll probably publish them in between every novel. And it'll probably be really on purpose. So I already know who the next one's going to be from the perspective of, because it's going to explain this like huge plot twist in the fourth book of the series.
Okay, so if we could pause right there.
Yeah.
Blueprint out where you're at in the 15 books, in the novella, what's out, what's to come.
So the first 3 books are out of the novel. So we have...
And whose story is that?
That's a perfect question. So the first 2 books are from the main point of view of Georgia Fields. So we do have 2 back-to-back from her, right? It's a great name. She's based on me too, which is exciting and scary all at the same time. So the first 2 books this time around, and So It Goes, are from her point of view. We do get back-to-back ones because, again, I wasn't anticipating writing a big series, but it's actually really necessary that we get a lot of answers in the second book. And she'll actually wrap up the season, so she won't be our main character for a really long time. And then the third book, Wildflowers, is also out. That was published this summer. And that's from the point of view of Penny Carson, who's totally different from Georgia, but they're like best friends, and she's sweet and dreamy and figuring out her life. So she's a good one. And then the fourth book right now I'm editing, and that one's called The Shoreline, and it's another new main character, Tess Vargas. That will come out in the spring. 2 books will come out next year.
Okay, can we pause?
Yeah.
I thought when you said 15 books, 3 trilogies, you were going to do Georgia Field 3. And Carson,
they bounce.
Girl, you are making it. You're like, let me shuffle this deck and like deal, and then pick up the cards again and reshuffle. I mean, it couldn't get any more complicated. So we are going to talk logistics and organizing in a moment.
Yeah, I do know who. I know the order. I've planned that out. So it does kind of flow. So we do bounce around. Sometimes we'll get some back-to-back stories, but I felt like it'll keep it kind of fresh if we're always bouncing around and you never know what's going to kind of happen.
Yeah, that is a good question. Are they in chronological order? Like,
yes.
Is that what have to be in that? Okay. So
yeah, they are in chronological order. They each take place over about 3 months of a time span. So they are short time spans. They're decently long books. They're about a little bit more than 400 pages is each paperback. So they're decently long. And yeah, so then they pick up pretty quickly after the other book, sometimes just like a few weeks after, sometimes a month or 2. So it does pick up, and it'll be over 5 years by the time we twist and turn and be done with them.
Okay, The Shoreline then is book 4.
Book 4, yeah.
Spring.
That'll come out in the spring of next year. And so as far as novellas go, they're brand new. So the first one, I'm waiting for the proof copy to show up. I was hoping it was going to show up today so I could show you guys. But of course it didn't. It'll probably come tomorrow.
Murphy's Law.
Right. Yeah, so there's just 1 novella right now. And then I'm guessing, if I can get my act together, probably 2 more novellas for next year as well.
Where does that slot in? Can you get a novella in before The Shoreline, or does that need to chronologically go like after?
No, they're going to be kind
of the novellas not even chronological. They're just however they fit in. Yeah,
they're not going to be chronological at all. They're just going to be totally random. Yeah, so the first one does take place in 1968. There are a few of like our main male characters that, are love interests. They'll all get one. And so I might toy around with doing some that are like happening at the same time, but from their perspective, which might be interesting. So I have to see if that would actually be fun to read.
Well, that begs the question then, are these that you're writing in single POV or multi?
Single. I don't think I can handle multi. I don't know how people do it. I love reading multi point of views. I don't think I could do it.
Teaching myself that now. So I've been totally deconstructing my writing discipline and trying to like rebuild it to get better. So my dark romance series is single POV and will remain single POV. And then I have a Cougars and Cubs series that I'm launching that's dual POV.
Yeah, that has to be a hard shift, I would imagine.
Yeah, my brain gets tired and I'm like, I need to write 8 hours today. And my brain is like, girl, please.
No, I have a hard time shifting from going from Georgia to Penny. Like, it was hard to find Penny's voice.
Yes.
Because I default to Georgia because I was so used to writing as her. I was like, who is this person?
Especially,
she found her voice.
I find when they're not really like, I don't want to say this the wrong way. Like we're not strong characters, and I don't mean strong as in like we're writing weak characters.
Right.
When they don't have a like flamboyant or outlandish personality where they're so in your face.
Yeah.
I feel like when you're writing a more subtle personality, they're harder to write because they aren't so like say what they mean, say what they want, they don't care. Yeah.
Yes. No, you're exactly right. And the next main character, Tess, she is spicy and she's sassy and
she'll be easy.
She's just like that. So she's easy. I'm like, oh, I can banter with her all day.
If she says what she wants, she doesn't care. F you. Yeah.
Yeah,
those are the easy ones. But when you try to write more like kind, considerate, normal, you're like, dang, these are hard.
Yeah. Oh, that's Penny Carson. She is your sweet girl who you love her. You love her even as she messes up the whole book. She makes bad choices the whole book. And at the end, you're still like,
come on,
I love you, girl.
Penny.
Like, yeah, you definitely get frustrated with Penny at times. I get frustrated with her, but I love her. I love her so much. But yeah, she was hard to write. She was hard to find her voice for a while.
I can believe that. Okay, so you had said 15 books in the series.
Yeah.
And in your blueprint, if you're putting out 2 next year, and that would put you at 5.
It would put me at 5, yeah.
10 more to go. Hey, that's not daunting or nothing, you know.
Yeah.
And are you going to do 2 a year? Because that would be basically the next 5 years planned out.
Yeah, I'm so torn because there's this part of me that's like, I don't think I could ever really leave this place of writing. Like, I love writing this place, right?
Yes.
So that's hard. But although I'm sure I'll fall in love with someplace else, you know. But I also, you know, from a reader standpoint, it's like, how many books are you going to want to read a year or 2? So I can try and consider that. Like, do you really want 2 books a year? Do you only want 1 book a year? Like, so I don't know. I don't know what the cadence will be. This year I only published the 1 novel and the 1 novella. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what's going to happen publishing wise.
And how was that for you doing 1 of each? Was that too much, not enough, the sweet spot?
It was weird.
Weird how?
Strange. Violet Wildflowers was a breeze. That came out fine. And I was toying with the idea of the novellas for a long time. And when I finally was like, I'm going to do it, I was writing the 4th book. So I was kind of doing those 2 at the same time. And I learned that's not good for me. Doing 2 at one time was too stressful.
But do you think too it can be too confusing because you are in the same world? Like as me now, I will have 2 series going on, radically different. So I think it's easier to separate. But when you are marinating in the same town, it's hard.
Yeah, and I think that's probably why I struggled. I was like, I feel like I want to finish. So I let myself pause with the 4th book. I was like, you know what? I normally, when I write, I finish a draft and I immediately start an edit. I don't give myself space usually. Yeah. And I was like, everyone tells me that I should give myself a break, like kind of forget about it. So I was like, let me see. So I did eventually kind of stop the 4th book, did everything for the novella. And then I came back to the 4th book, which was hard because I like forgot everything I wrote. It was like a brand new book. I had to read it once through. I couldn't even edit. I was like, I don't remember what I wrote.
Oh gosh.
So I need to find a better method for myself.
I was gonna say, will you do that again?
I don't know. Probably, yeah, because I'm crazy, and I'll put myself through this again. So
I'm a glutton for punishment.
Like, you know, if I did it once, I could do it again. But we'll see. I don't know. I don't know what's gonna happen.
And you said there's 6 novellas that you have on the drawing board.
Yes, I'm like. There's probably more. I've mapped out so far, like who's definitely going to get one. and there's a lot of people. So I'm toying with probably the next like three or four I probably definitely know are coming.
Yeah.
Because I just have to get it out. Like I want to tell people about these fake people in my head.
Yeah, they deserve their own book.
Exactly. So I don't know.
So I read, J.K. Rowling's everything with her.
Yeah.
And she had said she had created the Harry Potter world and had lived with that for 17 years. And it kind of coincided. Everyone knows her story about, poverty and being on assistance. And so it kind of coincided with like the, in between her children, like she had already had one child, she had gotten married, had other.
Yeah.
And so she said Harry Potter lived with her as her children grew up. And so she said, when that last book came, she said, I was utterly devastated. She says, I knew I was in mourning. I was mourning the loss of this imaginary child. And so I know some people think that's crazy, but when you spend 17 years creating this world, these characters, and obviously, I mean, look at the magic that they are, it's an empire.
Right.
And so she said she had to go and seek help to have someone, to talk through this, because everybody's like, it's a book, like, come on. And she's like, you guys don't understand.
Not. Yeah. I get it. And I probably wouldn't have a few years ago, but these characters become like, and this is probably a unique writer's experience too. It's like these characters become your friends somehow. Like, like maybe I just sound crazy, but it's like, I know these people inside and out. Like I can rely on these fictional people whenever I need to. It's like I show up for them every day to edit or write, and they're there. And writing can be so healing. At least for me, it's like I'm infusing these
so cathartic.
Oh yeah, and you don't realize it. Like the first two books deal a lot with grief, and for me, that was me processing so much grief that I didn't do 10 years ago for when my cousin passed away unexpectedly. And I was like, oh, I'm handling this now 10 years later through this character.
It just shows how deep it was in there.
Right. Yeah. And so, I think it'll be hard and that's part of the reason why I'm like, I never want to leave this place, because I don't want to deal with having to say goodbye. Well, in that way.
That's the thing. I don't think we ever heal from grief. I feel like we just kill us.
Oh, yeah. I agree with that. Yeah.
I had on here a couple times. She's a delightful author. Her name is Gabby Chimilar, and she had said something very similar to you. And she said, I love hanging out with my characters. She says they're honestly my best friend. And she's married to this beautiful human being. He is so supportive of her. He drives. She's a Canadian author, so they don't have Barnes and Noble. They have Indigo up there, which is in it. He drives around all the Indigos on his lunch break and goes in and faces her books, to make sure that they're facing out.
People see them. Yeah.
He is like the sweetest human being for her. And so he does, she never asked him to do it, but he just goes and does it on his lunch break, then goes right back to work, and he'll hit all of her 6 bookstores over the course of a week just to make sure they're facing out. But she said that. She said, I get anxious if I don't hang out with my characters. She said, my best friends. And so she says he can literally see it kind of like bubble up in her, like, ooh, And so he's like, do you need to go hang out with your friends? And she's like, I do. How sweet is that?
One, I love him. Like,
I know. Every time she's on, I'm like, I love you, Gabby, but can we talk about your sweet husband? Because like, we don't get that kind of sweetness in the real world. So we all have to like live through him.
Right. For real. Like, where can I find my version of that? That'd be great.
And there's a million examples that she has of him. It's so cute.
I love that.
Yeah.
I get the same way though. Like, I can relate to her. Like, I have to edit or write or read something every single day. And the days I don't, I feel it. Like, I feel like I'm not connected in the right way that I should be somehow. It's strange.
No. I know what you're talking about. It's literally an invisible thread.
I love that. Yeah.
kind of, like floats and you feel that pull. And when you don't when you obviously acknowledge it, but when you don't take advantage of it, it does really bother you.
Right. And I never would have thought, if you would have told me 5 years ago that I'd be obsessed or like this, like strongly in love with characters, I'd be like, okay, I mean, I like characters from books, sure, but I don't think about them all day or like.
They're not a lot of these voices living in my head.
Right. But here we are.
They are. So, okay, so starting with that, you have created this fantastic world, which I marvel at. Where did it come from? How did you start?
So I actually started writing this time around years ago. I'm 30. I just turned 34. I probably started when I was like 26.
Okay.
And
8 years.
Yeah, so like a while ago, and I always wanted to write. I loved creative writing growing up. Like as a kid, I used to write songs. I don't have any musical ability, but like, I was like, that felt right.
That went out, Kristina.
Fine, right? So I did that, and then in high school, I loved creative writing, and there was something that I always wanted to do it, but it felt at least then like something like I couldn't do it. Like, who am I? I can't just write a book and like publish a book, right? Like
syndrome is bad.
Everyone's it's awful, right? Everyone deals with it, and it's at that time too. I didn't know about self-publishing, like, and it probably that back then it was probably just starting to get popular and more, common anyway. But I didn't know that was an option, and I was like, who am I? Who's gonna just like buy a book or a story from this random girl who's never written before? So eventually though I started, and I was like, let's just see. And I didn't realize then the commitment and the time that you need to write a book.
Yeah.
You don't know what you don't know. I don't know
feel
what I thought.
It's a blessing though, because I feel like when we write, the first draft is always for us.
Yeah.
And some drafts may never see the light of day.
No, and I'm glad I didn't write it then. I probably wrote like 4 chapters, and it was a very different idea. It was going to be basically like a saga. It was still Georgia. It was always Georgia. It was always called This Time Around. That was always steady. And it would have been probably like 3 parts of her being a kid, and then like an 18-ish-year-old, and then like late 20s. And so it was a very different story. And I'm glad I stopped it. And I always thought about it. It was always in the back of my mind. Always just sitting there.
Yep. Marinating.
Right, exactly. And I would always come back, and I never pulled it up for all those years. I never pulled it up. And then COVID happened. This is like I feel like so many authors came out of COVID.
Yep.
I was cleaning out my Google Docs and I found it. And I was like, oh, maybe this is the time. Right. You're my old friend. And I was like, maybe this is the time. I'm sitting at home. Nothing's happening. Like, I can't do anything.
It was COVID.
It was COVID, right? And, I live in New York, and for a while we were like the hot spot of the world. Yeah. We literally weren't doing anything. Like, you stayed put. So that's kind of where I was like, now's the time. If I'm ever going to start, it's now. And then you write, and I was like, oh, this is actually decent, I think. I think this can actually, like, be something. And I just leaned into it. I finally was like, screw the world that makes me feel like I can't do this. I'm going to. And I did it. And then I discovered self-publishing along the way. And I was like, this is absolutely for me. And here we are.
Did you use any of those 4 chapters, or did you just scrap it and start over?
Scrapped it all. I scrapped it, and I kept her name and her father's name. Her father's name is the same, and the title. And I was like, and Nelsonville didn't get a name for a really long time, but it was always going to take place in this beach town in Rhode Island. So the town was always going to kind of be the same. But the name of Nelsonville didn't come for a very long time while I was writing. So yeah, she got her fresh start, and she needed it. So
But that is so sweet. I always wonder, you know, there's a bucket list. People are like, I want to go skydiving. I want to write a book. You know, I want to travel the world. And so that writing a book is on everyone's bucket list. But I always wonder how many dreams die with people, societal norms. Who am I? I'm not good enough. Nobody will read it. And I find that so tragic.
I know. And because I don't know what I would have done.
Think about you. If you listened to you, you wouldn't have this beautiful world. We wouldn't be talking about you going into mourning like J.K. Rowling's, you know, when this is over.
Right.
And what a beautiful thing you created from nothing.
Right. And I feel like that's a reminder that everyone kind of needs. It's like you can do it. If you have the idea and you have the energy and you want it, like, just do it. And guess what? Especially if you want to write a book, because I know that that's a lot of people's thing, and I get it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Like, write it. And if it's bad, or if you don't want to publish it because publishing is really scary, like, I get that, then don't. But like, just write your story. Like, get it out. Like, who knows what's gonna come of it? Like, I've met some incredible people along this way. I've pushed myself. I'm now looking back, I'm like, I'm so proud of everything that I flippin' did. Because, like, I really, really pushed myself beyond the limits and just let myself do it. And I'm like, I wouldn't be this version of me now had I not stumbled upon this old document from years ago, you know?
If I didn't sit up in New York, plan to go anywhere. Right. You know, I know what you're saying, because, you know, the saying is we are our own worst critic. And I do believe that to an extent, but you also have to have a tribe of support around you. Yeah. You know, and if you reach out to, I don't know, a spouse or a loved one or a friend, and they're just like, why? You know, it's really hard to take. Yeah. You know, the world tells you no, right? And so I always tell everyone I'm around, everyone that knows me is like, if you tell me no, I'm not talking to the right person. Because I will bulldoze through the no's. Like, I just don't, I'm like, F it, right? Yeah. But when that no comes so intimately close to you, family, friend, loved one, you know, husband and wife, that kind of thing, it does throw you for a loop. Yeah. And it does feed that imposter syndrome. So I feel that that's kind of hard too. And that's why I try to have these Let's Go Live, because I want to support other authors and promote them, and however I can help, because together we grow.
Absolutely. I'm so with you on that. I always say, like, there's so much room for all of us at the table. And because I think too, like, thankfully, like, my family and friends are super supportive of my book, but like, there's also only so much that, one, they want to talk about my books. Like, they don't want to talk about my books all the time. Two, they don't want to listen to me talk about publishing and like my author friends all the time. So it's like, you kind of gravitate towards all these people that you meet in the community, and you're like, let's all boost each other up. And we do. I love this little community.
Yeah, I love Bookstagram because it's so helpful for that. And if you're a part of the author groups, you know, like you have private author groups, those are helpful because, oh my gosh, there's 100 different ways to be an indie author. And you're like, have y'all tried this? Are you doing that? Are you doing this thing? You know, and just trying to navigate like which direction I go.
Yeah, it's, I can't claim. I've published 3 books now, and I still don't know everything about this world. I just like make it up as I go, and I talk to people about it, and they're also making it up as they go, and everyone does something different, which I love. I love that though about being indie, because what works for me might not work for you, and vice versa. And so it's nice to kind of choose your own path and figure it out, and every time you do it a little bit differently, which is also kind of fun, because it's like, how can I do it better? How can I do it, you know, that's going to make my books better, make me better. And that's kind of fun. Oh, yeah. I find it fun, at least.
Oh yeah. Trust me, you make a mistake and you're like, don't do that. Don't do that again.
Oh yeah.
So Nelsonville, you're literally talking 15 books, 6 novellas. That's at 21, maybe more.
I'm going to say probably more, yeah.
Probably more. Yeah. How do you, let's talk about structure and tools. How do you, as an author, keep that straight? What documents, spreadsheets, like how do you do that? Because, you know, readers are amazing at picking up inconsistencies, and us
Oh,
authors,
yeah.
sometimes we don't always snap to it because we have the whole universe in our head. They have a piece.
Right. And a lot of the times, like, we're looking ahead, not always backwards.
Of course.
It's actually something I have to get better about, especially now that I'm getting deeper into this series. I have right now, like, I'm a Google Doc girl. I love a good spreadsheet so much. So I just have this, like, huge master document that is all the books in the time frame, so that I can, sometimes I even forget like what time frame I'm in. I'm like, wait, what month am I supposed to be in this book?
Oh yeah, readers pick up on that. Yeah, EB,
right.
Like D&D character sheets. We've talked about that on other interviews because I know EB and Gabby, they're gamers, and apparently they keep those Dungeons and Dragons character sheets. And like, I've never heard of them, but I've been schooled in them, and they're like phenomenal for keeping your character.
Yeah, and it's like, it's silly things, right? Well, sometimes I'm like, at one point in last book, I was like, you know, I don't know that we've celebrated anybody's birthday. And I'm like, should we? Would we? Could we? Like, in theory, I could have just skipped it entirely, but I'm like, everyone needs a birthday.
Yeah.
So I just had, like, it's something stupid like that, but I'm like, okay, so yeah, my spreadsheet has, like, who you are, what book we first met you in, because we meet characters in the first book that might not come back in the third book, and like, maybe I said something about them in the first book, and, you know, who they're related to, where they work. Have I mentioned where they work? Do they have a last name? Not all the characters have a last name. A lot of them do, but most of them don't. So I just try and keep, like, basic things. But I actually just relaunched my website over the summer, and that's going to hold me accountable because it has, like, over 100-ish pages of bonus content. So yeah.
Okay. What do you have? That's so much.
Everything. I kind of, I was like, okay, if people are going to commit to reading 15 just novels by me in this one world, I need to give them something. I need to give you, like, an incentive to kind of stick with me. And I actually got this idea from J.K. Rowling, because she has it. She did this. And when my anxiety is really bad, I hyper fixate. And
as we all do.
Right, exactly. So at one point, my hyperfixation was Harry Potter when I was really stressed about getting the first book out. And I mean, I grew up on Harry Potter. I know that's also, she's a little controversial, but that was kind of my hyperfixation. She has all these, like, bonus pages of character bios and all this stuff. And I was like, well, this is fun. So I spent about 6 months writing character bios. So the website has every main recurring character has a bio, and it's stuff that you don't get in the books necessarily too. So it's not like you're just reading a bio. Yeah, right. Because otherwise that'd be boring. I'm like, if you already know this because you read the books, then you're not going to want to read it. All the businesses have histories, so all of Main Street kind of comes alive. They have logos, and you kind of hear, like, their stories. I talk about all the major themes because there are a lot of reoccurring themes. I mean, like, grief is going to be a big one, but just, like, romance and, like, these big relationships and kind of how I handle that. So there's, like, a ton of stuff like that. There's trivia, there's fun stuff. And then there's also posts for every book. For every chapter, you'll get a recap. So if you finish a chapter and you're like, why would she do this? Like, this is crazy. You can go to that chapter recap and I'll tell you why I did X, Y, and Z, or what the original storylines were, because storylines have changed a ton. So it kind of just, like, explains a lot of that. Yeah, those you can actually interact with, which is fun.
That is so impressive.
Yeah, and so I figure it's just something that, one, you know, if you're gonna stick with me for a while, you'll get even more content beyond the books. And it's also something that's fun in the in-between. Once I publish a book, I can kind of, you know, I'll have to do these chapter recaps for every book. I'll have to add all these, you know, character bios for new characters that we meet and stuff. So it'll kind of always be growing and evolving. And I just feel like it's a fun added added thing for people to come and enjoy.
Oh my gosh, I'm so impressed. I bet though your readers do love it.
Yeah, it's gotten some really good responses so far. It just launched just about a month ago now, barely. So yeah, people are like just really getting into it, which is exciting. It's fun to see where everyone's going and checking out, which is exciting. Yeah.
And so that's also to help build your newsletter, right?
Yeah. Yes. It's been this blessing, because even I'm just like on days where I'm like, I don't know what to post on social media. I'm like, I got all this stuff on my website. Let's highlight something. I already did so much of this work. So between social media and my newsletter, I get to include fun things. Yeah, so it's kind of always there, which is really nice on those days where I don't want to think of what to do for all of these different pieces of being a self-published author.
I love your social media. You know, I love those infographics. They're so cute. Yes. And they match Nelsonville.
Right? Yeah, I kind of always love the little vibes of Nelsonville everywhere, especially in social media. Yeah.
Well, it's so happy, right? Because we get on social media and oh my gosh, it's just like, one, we spend way too much time on it. Two, you can go down the wrong road and then it can affect you emotionally. And then up comes Nelsonville. It's so cute.
Yeah, and it might be a smidge misleading because some crazy things happen in Nelsonville.
No,
there's some twists and turns.
No, that's not misleading. That's life, right? Because you go down Main Street and you're like, oh my gosh, this is so quaint. I could live here. And then you find out like the town, someone got murdered. And you're like, what?
Scandal, drama.
I know.
Absolutely. Yeah.
There's always a facade. That Main Street is just a big lie, but we all buy into it.
Right. That's exactly it. So, but good things happen from the bad things too. So it's fine.
Of course. Okay, now I'm going to have to join your website and be like, oh, I love it. I would like to say that I'm going to steal your ideas. However, I'm too damn lazy.
It was so much work. It was so much work. And there are things that I wanted to do that I didn't even get to. What? And I'm like, I don't know why I'm getting crazy right now. So there'll be more fun stuff down the line. But I'm glad I did it, even on the days where it was very stressful.
I mean, the sense of accomplishment when you pull it up, you'd be like, I did this. Right. I could be like I'd break my arm patting myself on the back.
Right. Sometimes it's nice to compliment yourself.
Of course. No, I will just troll you because absolutely. I will actually probably never do that. People ask me like, what's your motivation? Why'd you do that? I'm like, I don't know, read the book.
I don't know.
I don't know. Just because I wrote it. Don't mean
Right. Exactly.
So tell me, what is the hardest part about writing and the easiest part for you?
Oh, the hardest part is probably, oh my God, I don't know. Because it's hard. Like the whole process is so hard. I think a lot of the time
indie author is hard.
Being an indie author is, writing a book is the easiest part about being an indie author. And I feel like it shouldn't be. I feel like it should be the hardest part.
For real.
So
I feel like social media, between like the social media and your newsletter and then writing and editing your book cover, the formatting, the promotions, it is a lot. And sometimes things slip.
Yeah, so like as far as the whole indie process goes, writing is the easiest part for sure. But as far as writing goes, I think I always wanted like my books to be really purposeful, and I want to make sure that people are always connecting with whether it's a storyline or a character. So and I know this is going to be a struggle for me because I'm writing such a big series, so it's always like I'm always thinking ahead and thinking of like, okay, if I do this now, what can I do later to make sure that people are still going to be connecting in so many ways. Like I want people to read my books and be like, I'm with my friends, because again, that's how I feel. So a lot of the times I'm really thinking of just how I'm going to be able to do that for 15 books. And you get in your head when you're writing, just this like one chapter of one book. So I get in my head a lot with just like the big details. So that's probably the hardest. The easiest is just when I'm just like, write. When I don't put any pressure on myself, when I'm not worried about my word count or anything, I'm just like, tell a story and I let myself have fun. And that's what makes it like so easy for writing. It's just like, see what happens. I don't plan. I'm a huge planner in the grand scheme of things, but when it comes to like writing a chapter, I'm like, I don't know how we're going to get from point A to point B. Let's see what happens.
Let's roll the dice.
So it's when things change sometimes, which is super interesting that I'm not as much of a planner when I'm a very big planner in the whole series now that I'm like thinking about it. But
well, you had said that you like to be in your author business every day.
Yeah.
And so do you have a writing goal, or do you, not a daily writing goal, but do you have a writing goal total? Like, how long does it take you to write a book?
Yeah, so I definitely don't have a daily writing goal because that's too much pressure, but I tend to take about maybe like 2.5 months to write a first draft.
Mm-hmm.
That's been kind of for the novels at least. The novella is much quicker. Because it's also a lot of because I don't plan the actual stories, like the details so much. It's a lot of like, wait, does this make sense? And then like going back and changing a lot in my first draft. And then it takes me about another 2.5, 3 months to edit. I do about a dozen edits. I don't do any beta readers. I don't do any ARC readers, which I know is not like super common for authors.
Does your editing process include rewriting?
So my first draft, I leave it really, not really short. I always leave myself at least one full like Google Doc page blank for myself. So my first few edits are a lot of adding in the details more, making sure everything's consistent and that I don't have any plot holes. Which I love, because that means my first few edits still feel like I'm really writing still. And that's my favorite. Like the edits where I'm like, I don't know where this comma goes. Those are my least favorite. But that's why I have an editor. I have a line editor and she does all of that, and that's wonderful. But yeah, so it probably takes me about 5 months from start to finish to write a book. And then once I'm like towards the end, I draw my own covers, which is also, I know, like a big no now, but I make my own covers too. So then it takes me about a few weeks to make each cover, and then my book usually comes back from the editor at that point. When I'm done, I'm like, oh yay, and then I full steam ahead to getting it out into the world.
Oh, I know a ton of authors that do their own covers, like Stella Stevenson. She does illustrated covers. They are so cute. And so she creates those. Lena Ravenhill, she does high fantasy romance, and she makes them AI generated, and they are stunning. Says she makes her own too.
I love it. That makes me happy, because when I was researching like what to do when you self-publish, it's everyone's like, get an editor. That was stuff, and I knew I needed a line editor. Like that was no question.
Unless you're a grammar teacher.
Yeah.
Everyone needs it.
Like 1,000,000%. So like that was non-negotiable for me. Then I was like, I don't know, I feel like I can make my cover, and everyone was like, hire a professional. Like everything was like hire a professional. And I was like, I'm pretty sure I can do this.
Yeah.
And I did, and and I'm so glad I did. Like I love my book covers. I don't think I'd love them as much if someone else made them. Well, only because knowing I could make them. That's probably the only reason.
Yeah.
If I couldn't make them, someone else could have done it in a heartbeat. But yeah, it's like one of those I hate those things that are like things not to do or things to do, and that was a big lesson I learned after publishing.
I feel a lot of the rules are changing. I mean, editing, of course, no, that is like the golden rule, because people will do not finish your book if it's not properly edited. And girl, I'm the same. I used to know where commas go, and then I became an author, and I'm like, hell if I know. And then I was talking to my daughter, she's brilliant, so smart, honors everything. Her GPA is like ridiculous, like 4.5 or something. I was like, how's it even possible? So I had said something about a comma, and she's like, Mom, that's a complex compound sentence. Of course it goes there. And I'm like, what?
Sure.
What are you saying? Like, I used to be like, the ball. Oh, comma.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I used to be so much better until whenever I get that my editor's copy back, I'm like, man, I tried so hard this time. And she's like, I've come a long way. And she'll tell me, and she's like, girl, you're learning. And I'm like, thanks so much.
Oh, yeah. I can't tell you. Like, I have 2 AI editing softwares. I have Grammarly and I have ProWrite.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I got this comma thing down. No, I don't, because they conflict with each other.
Yeah.
And that's not helpful. And then when I match them and then send it to my editor, she's like, girl, you got comma crazy.
Yeah. I think like 90% of my edits from my editor is literally commas.
Adding them or taking them out? Mine's taking them out.
Oh yeah, she'll take them out. But sometimes, I remember one edit, I don't even remember what book it was. I don't know what this, I think it was dialogue, and it was like comma after every like 2 words, and there was like 4 commas in a sentence, and I was like, what is this? So I'm like, if you say so, it's going in. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I trust you.
I don't question mine. And so I haven't gotten a bad review about commas.
Me either. So
I don't know. Oh,
yeah.
okay, so let's switch gears, because
Yeah.
I am fascinated by your podcast, because I feel like, girl, you already do 50,000 million things that I, one, I'm too lazy and don't have the energy to do. 2, tell me about your podcast.
So
the name first.
Yeah, so the podcast name is called Greetings from Nelsonville. It's also like the day that HBO calls and is like, we really want to, do a TV series. That's what I envision it being named, is Greetings from Nelsonville.
Love it. Ooh,
right?
Calling in the future, like manifesting stuff. Let's go.
Manifesting all day over here.
Love it.
So I've loved podcasts for years, and I've always wanted to do one. Always. And so my goal was, for my 30th birthday, I would start a podcast. I didn't start it until I was 33. So I was like, whatever.
But still, it started. It's
right,
live.
It started. Exactly. So it's almost a year old. It launched in January of this year, so it's still pretty new. And the first 15, 20 minutes, I talk about Nelsonville. So it might be a current theme, or like last episode, I talked about Tess, because I had just announced that she was going to be the next character. So, I'll talk about Nelsonville, and then I shift. So the bulk of the episode is exactly what you and I are doing. It's talking to another indie author about their books, their writing, being indie, and just everything. Because, I could talk about Nelsonville all day, but I don't think everybody wants to hear it. But I also realized one of the tough lessons I learned with being indie when I first started, again, is that imposter syndrome. I'm like, nobody wants, who wants to get to know me? I only have 1 book out. Who cares? Everyone has 1 book out, in this community. And I had a really hard time getting over that, over myself, and making connections. Yeah. And once I started to slowly do that, I was like, oh my God, this whole experience is so much better when you have friends. The whole thing. Mm-hmm. And, there's so much room for all of us at the table. This isn't a competition. Some people read a book every other day. I'm like, they need us. They need all of our books. So why not connect and talk about each other and collaborate and share each other? So most of the podcast is exactly what we're doing. It's just hanging out with authors, meeting new friends, and sharing their books and their stories. So those go out every other week. Actually, the newest episode goes out on Monday on Spotify. I don't have the capacity to do it weekly because it is a lot of work, but maybe down the line. But yeah, so it's fun. It's really just indie author centric and shining light on all of our really fun author friends.
And so if people want to be on there, anyone who's listening, are you looking for authors to interview?
I am. I'm booked, which is really exciting. I'm booked through February, which is such a relief that I don't have to stress about it. And I'm just going to be starting to book for like spring, probably the next few weeks. So they can go right to my website, KristinaCarmela.com, and you'll see a tab that's Greetings from Nelsonville. And I just have a form, so you can check out all the episodes. All the links are also there, and all the authors. And then you just fill out the form, and I'll just reach out to you when I'm ready to start scheduling this next batch. And yeah, then we just hang out for an hour and chill and get to know each other. So it's so much fun. So yeah, I'm always welcoming new authors to get to chat with.
So don't slide into your DMs. Go to your website.
Right, yeah. I mean, plenty of people have slid right on in, so that's fine too.
Okay.
I'm trying to be more organized this year, now that I've gotten a year under my belt.
Oh my
so
God.
At least the forum.
You're so organized. That's why I'm like, break down all the tools and tricks and apps you're using, okay? I need alphabetical order.
Right, exactly.
So on your podcast, though, how do you handle that? Do you do like Zoom? Is it through StreamYard, Anchor?
We do Zoom. Yeah, Zoom was just the easiest because I work a corporate 9 to 5. So like super familiar with Zoom. So yeah, it's just hop on Zoom and we hang out. I don't always share the video. I do it sometimes on social media as long as the other author is cool with it. But yeah, otherwise it's nice and chill, easy.
Well, I feel like everyone now has been indoctrinated into Zoom because of COVID.
Yeah, COVID brought all sorts of things.
Brought all of us IT experts.
Exactly.
Okay, so what's next? I feel like I could talk to you forever because it's fascinating.
Right?
You have Nelsonville, you have your books, you have the novella, you have the podcast, you have a 9 to 5.
Yeah.
I feel like you have more hours in the day than I do.
I feel like I don't know I don't know how I do it. Sometimes I do look back and I'm like, I want to take naps and I just can't. What's next? Actually, this month is my first month. I started an indie book club because again, one more thing.
Okay, so is that going to be virtual or is it
going to be virtual?
Okay, how does that work then?
So what I'm doing, I don't know why I'm saying we, I have indie authors from literally all over the world, picked from October to August of next year. I'm kind of paused right now because I'm like, that seems really excessive to have scheduled that far out. But here we are.
That's a good problem to have, though.
It's great, and I have so many people on the wait list. It's like super exciting. Nice. So every month is a different book. All the books are selected. You can go to my website and look at all the books. So like October is by an author. I have her copy somewhere because I'm reading it right now, but I naturally don't know where it is. It's called The Way We Wind by Hallie Starling, and it's a novella, so it's about 140 pages to ease in. So you'll get the whole month to read the book, and a lot of authors are doing sales and deals for people. So you just have to buy the book. You sign up for the month, and then like the day before, we have already chosen all the dates of the virtual discussion. You'll get emailed the Zoom link. And what's really fun about the discussion is it'll bring together readers, but then all the indie authors have also committed to hanging out and being on the discussion. So it's kind of like this exclusive little chat. We're going to do like polls and trivia, and we'll have questions prepped, but then you can ask the author anything, or you can just chat with other readers. And I want it to be a way of, I feel like it's really hard to find indie books unless you're like very purposefully trying to find indie books. And I'm like, here's an easy way. Here's all these indie books. We're going to read them. You're going to get to know the author. And I think that's like so unique to indie. Like authors are like, yeah, let's hang. Let's talk to readers. Let's do this.
Oh, no, I think that's fascinating because I had, I think it was Kindlepreneur, Kindlepreneur Dave, can't think of his name. But Kindlepreneur is huge, right? So if you Google them, they have classes, they work with Amazon, they get all like that. If there's any kind of thing new that comes out with Amazon, they get like first behind the scenes knowledge of it, and then they'll tell like all the indie authors or anyone who's on Kindle. Gotcha. And so they had talked about how traditionally published authors get up to like 40 keywords, where we as indies only get 7. You know,
I pulled all my books off of Amazon and Barnes & Noble last month.
really?
I pulled them all.
Are you selling direct? I know that's really getting to be common for folks.
Yeah, I always have from the start. And I did Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and I didn't love the experience of everywhere else. And I sold about 8 times more books on my own than I did from them. So I was like, screw it.
Oh my gosh, good for you.
Yeah, I do a lot of in-person events too. I do a lot in my community. So yeah, I was just like, we're making this my own. But yeah, well, and that's part of the reason probably why I struggled on platforms like Amazon, if you're not giving the same opportunities to indie authors.
Well,
you know?
it just came out, I think it was Monday, they came out, and there's another guy I follow on YouTube, and dang it if I can't remember his name, I'm drawing a blank. Well, what he does though is he does indie news every Monday, and he does it on YouTube, and so he'll kind of give you like the latest and greatest for that particular week or any kind of new developments. And so someone in his Discord, he writes a lot of like nonfiction, a lot of like marketing in your book, and so someone in his Discord went on their mobile app, incognito mode, and was like, hey, we can see all the keywords that traditionally publish. And so they posted screenshots on his Discord. And so I've heard it from 2 different sources, Kindlepreneur and this guy on, I think his name is Dave also, on YouTube. And so you're just like, how do you compete with that? I mean, if they get 40 keywords and we get 7, you would think like, okay, maybe it should be reversed.
Right. And it's just like, I feel like indie already has, everybody assumes, not everyone, but a lot of people assume that if you're indie, it's because you couldn't get a traditional deal. And it's like, that's not the case for like the majority of us. Like, that's right. It's like breaking all these like past biases that people have. And I think a lot of readers probably also don't notice or care also, but it's like, if you're not looking for these books, you're not going to find them. You're going to get lost in Barnes and Noble. You're going to get lost in a lot of places, especially like online. When you're shopping online on a website, if you don't know what you're looking for, it's hard to find anything.
It's really like Amazon ads and Facebook ads and, a lot of paid promotions in order to get, your books out there. And you're right. I don't think readers much care. I think there was this stigma a long time ago that indie were not as good of quality. But I tell you, there are some really talented indie authors out there. And I know that I will probably never go traditional because I don't want you changing my books. I want to publish every other month. I don't want to wait a year. I don't want to wait 2 years. I don't want you to have to change my story, change my cover, change my characters.
What's the point? Right.
I'm a control freak.
Me too. Obviously. We've established this.
And so I can't stomach what traditionally published books do to the author. And that's an individual choice. I am not passing judgment. I read a lot of traditional and I read indie.
I say all the time, they're just like different paths. Like indie, hybrid, traditional. It's just like you do what's best for you and to get your books out there. But like I've read plenty of traditionally published books that are not good. And I've read a whole bunch of indie books that are like really good. You're going to get that quality, the range in quality no matter where you go. And like it's so subjective. Like what I think is great, my sister absolutely doesn't. We have very different tastes in books.
My sister has a library. It's 2 stories. It's 1,800 books. She goes into Barnes and Noble. Yeah, it's stunning. I've had it on my Instagram a couple times. On my website, that's where I took all my author pictures, when I first did that a year ago, because her library is stunning. So she goes in and drops $200 on Barnes & Noble, probably like every couple of weeks. And then she'll read them all, and she's like, oh, these are awful.
You're like, what?
Like, just because it's traditional published does not mean it's a good story.
Yeah, no, it's really just a different means of getting your books from being in your brain out into the world.
Yeah.
And I feel like things are starting to change for the indie world. I think there's so many people who are like, again, let's collaborate, let's talk to each other, let's boost each other up, because there's There's room for all of us. And I think that's really unique about this community in general. And it's nice to be a part of that.
Because you're right. I mean, oh my gosh, when you get to these bookstagrammers, the book bloggers, they are voracious. I am amazed at how quickly that they can read a book.
I know.
You know, and I have some on my street team that are phenomenal readers. They're like, oh yeah, you know, I'm trying to get, 400 books read this year. I'm like, see,
like,
what?
How? Excuse me?
I know. They have like, kids alive. They're on Bookstagram. They have a husband. I'm just like, what?
How?
Okay, am I sleeping too much? What is happening?
Apparently, yes.
I know. And so I feel like, you're right. I mean, there is room for everybody at the table just because when you get these power readers, they go through books.
Yeah, they need all of our books. They need to be able to find all of our books, know?
For sure.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay, well,
there's also...
I'm fascinated by this virtual book club.
I think it's going to be fun.
But not
fun. No, I think it should be fun. I'm like a little nervous because this is our first month. I did it with an author that I know. I've had her on the podcast. She's great. So I was like, you're perfect to do this for the first time with me. Right, exactly. And she's like, I'm all for it. She's so chill. She's great. But I think it'll be really fun. I think it'll be different. I'm excited for it. I think it's just going to keep I think it'll grow. It's going to start off slow, just like everything. But I'm excited. I'm really excited for it.
And that's a book a month.
Book a month, which means I have to read more because I haven't read since I have started writing. I've read a handful of books.
That's a little aggressive. I was on a book club and we did a book a quarter. And then we lost some of those power readers. They're like, a book a quarter?
They're like, guys,
why can't y'all read one a month? I'm like, I don't know. Because like EB said on here, she wants to eat and cook and see her kids and live life.
Well, that's like part of the reason I was like, we need to have this all planned out. And that way, if you can make the February book club. Yeah. You can start reading right now if you want to.
Yeah, exactly.
Be ready.
Yes. Okay, so I have a few rapid fire questions.
Okay.
All right, you ready?
Ready.
Are you a paperback or e-reader?
Paperback.
Plotting or pantsing your novels?
Pantsing in the moment, yes.
It's so hard though. I've been trying to, I'm a pantser.
Yeah.
Pants my dark romance, but plotting, I'm trying to plot this Cougars and Cubs series and it is so hard.
I would imagine, yes.
Would you ever become a plotter?
I try it. Yeah, I try it.
First person or third person? What do you write in?
First person.
Present tense or past?
Present. Okay.
Plot driven or character driven? What's most important?
Oh my gosh, probably character driven.
I would think so. Because you said that you have all these backstories and you have their bios.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like plot, schmott.
It's fine.
Writing alone, writing with a partner or group, or writing in sprints?
I've only ever written alone. I haven't done either of the other two. So there's room for me to try the other two.
Are you going to participate in Camp NaNoWriMo?
That terrifies me. I don't know why.
Oh, why?
I think it just intimidates me so much. I think I'd be too stressed. Oddly enough, I think that would stress me.
Girl has 15,000 things going on. She's like, that's the straw that broke my back.
That's the thing.
Nano broke my back.
Yeah.
Okay, I love it. That is the most realist comment ever. Okay, outline or discovery writing?
Discovery, yeah.
Do you write in silence or with music?
Music or the television, yeah.
Oh, so like even if there's like noise and chatter, it doesn't bother you?
It has to be, either has to be something I've seen a million times. So either like Harry Potter or Schitt's Creek or Friends.
Okay.
Or currently.
Schitt's Creek is the best.
Schitt's Creek's my favorite. There's references to Schitt's Creek in Nelsonville all the time.
I love it. But if that's running, there's no way I'm writing because I'm like, squirrel.
Oh, well, and that happens to me sometimes. I just started watching Below Deck. I was like, reality TV is probably perfect because I probably only need to watch like 30% to know what's going on. So when I need that break from writing, I'm like, what are you guys doing?
Yeah. I think there's one, Love Island or something like that.
That's on my list. I've been told I also have to watch that.
I don't watch reality TV, but I came in one day and my son, he was watching, I was like, what are you watching? He's like, Love Island. It's awesome. I'm like, is this appropriate?
It's fine.
He's like, don't worry about it. Writing with a deadline or at your own pace?
It's like a combination of both. A loose deadline that I can adjust.
Yeah. Series or standalone, obviously.
Obviously series, yeah.
I had a question now. Are they, could they be considered interconnected, or could you read them as standalones, or do you have to read them?
So, like Violet Wildflowers, that's the one with our second main character, Penny. You could pick that up and read it without reading the first two. There's one storyline that really bleeds in from the second book to the third, but like I recap it in the book in case you like forgot. So like you don't have to. Mm-hmm. And that's, I kind of want to make each trilogy kind of that way too, that you could read the trilogy in order that way also. I think as we get deeper, I think once we're in like book 5 or 6, though, it's going to get really hard for those to kind of be standalone within the series.
Oh yeah, that makes sense. You're too far invested.
Right.
Okay, historical setting, present day or future?
Present day.
Yeah. Okay, when you sign off, do you be like, goodbye from Nelsonville?
You know what's funny? I don't think I have a sign off.
What?
I know.
Ma'am, so no. Okay, that is your personal homework because you have greetings from Nelsonville, so you need to have like a sign off.
I know. I don't know
what would that be.
I need it. I have like a little thing that plays at the end of every podcast, but I need like a catch. I do. You're right. I need a sign off.
Hey, no
I absolutely need this. Right, no pressure.
No, because I love it. I love when I come across your page and it's like, greetings from Nelsonville. And you're like, oh my gosh. It's like a post when you get a postcard in the mail, right?
That's what I think of all the time. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, that is all the questions I have for you. I've been so excited to have this interview. Because I love the world you created. I love you are such a talented, creative person. I was like, I just want to dig through her brain.
It's a scary place, but a lot happens.
It comes out in sweet graphics, so they're all like sweet and cheery and positive.
Yes.
You're like, okay.
I try.
Ciao from Nelsonville. No, that doesn't fit.
I know. I need to think of something now. Absolutely need something.
Google like exits, outro, something like that.
Yeah, to see if there's like a nautical way to say goodbye.
A nautical?
Like something at the beach, because we're also at the beach. Nelsonville's also on the beach.
Or like what beachgoers say. I don't know.
I'm gonna have to look at this.
You're like, I got it now. Down the rabbit hole we go.
Yeah, exactly.
You're welcome.
I'll let you know when I figure it out.
I know. I want to hear it. No, don't tell me. Do a post on it. That'd be great.
Yes. Yeah, see?
Yeah.
I love that.
Do an infographic on it. Yes. Well, I had just a wonderful time with you. You were so much fun to hang out with.
This was so fun.
Yeah.
So thank you for having me.
Thank you for
I'm glad we finally got to do it.
Yeah. You know I'm stalking you from afar.
Me too. Don't worry.
All right. Have a good rest of your night.
Thank you.
And I will slide into your DMs.
Always.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Ciao for now.
Ciao for now.